Sometimes, when I'm feeling nostalgic, I like to sit back, relax, and fire up some old favorite games of mine, like The Sims, for example. It's such a great game, full of good vibes, a calming atmosphere, and, most importantly, horrors beyond comprehension straight from the depths of hell. Fun. Glitches in video games have been a thing ever since video games have existed. Today, if a game comes out with any weird glitches or bugs, they tend to get fixed pretty quickly. And that wasn't the case in the good old days. If a game had any glitches, whether they were mundane or game-breaking did not matter. They were there to stay. Unless the game got another version released later at some point, but that usually wasn't the case. Now, glitches can come in all sorts of different varieties. Some can be pretty harmless or silly, some can ruin the game entirely or even erase your save file, while others could haunt your nightmares for the rest of your days. Some of them can even be used intentionally in a beneficial way, like the ones that help people speedrun through games, or perhaps like the one which allowed you to catch a Mew in the old Pokemon games without a Game Shark. Trust me, if you showed up to the playground with that glitch up your sleeves, you would have been treated like a king. Before this glitch was discovered, Mew was notoriously difficult to find without a Game Shark, as the only legitimate way to get our hands on one was through real-life events. If one of those events wasn't happening close to you, then you were out of luck. But hey, at least there was some legitimate way to get a Mew. In many old games, there is some really cool stuff hiding on the disc or cartridge without any proper way to access it at all. That stuff falls under a category of what I like to call lost content. Is it inaccessible due to a glitch, or is there a mystery behind it all? The reasons may or may not be lost to time, but the lost content can still be found. So in this series of videos, we will take a look at the glitches and dive into the lost content of all sorts of games. And what better game to start with than the much maligned Digimon World 2. In recent times, I've been playing a lot of Digimon World 2 for reasons I don't completely understand, but it only makes sense to start with that. Let's begin by taking a look at the lost content. First up, I think we gotta talk about the infamous mystery that is Kimeramon. Now, I won't go into too much detail with this one because I've already made a whole video about the mystery of Kimeramon. But I'll give a quick summary here still. Basically, Kimeramon was a Digimon that could be acquired in the Japanese version of Digimon World 2 through the use of a peripheral device for the PlayStation 1 called the Pocket Station. Through another game called Pocket Digimon World, you could train a Digimon and have it transferred from the Pocket Station to Digimon World 2. Kimeramon was one of the Digimon that could be trained in Pocket Digimon World in this way. So that seems pretty straightforward, right? What's the problem then? Well, the thing is, the Pocket Station never made it outside of Japan. And because of that, all functionality with Pocket Digimon World was wiped out. The NPC which allows you to transfer Digimon over to Digimon World 2 isn't even present in the English version of the game. So the dedicated method of acquiring Kimeramon was completely inaccessible for the English audience. Many thought that the developers of the English version of the game may have created an alternative method of acquiring Kimeramon. Most people had their eye on Terra Domain, an optional dungeon that shows up after the end of the game that could take hours to complete. The theory was that Kimeramon could be found on the 99th floor of this domain, but that there was only a 1 out of 666 chance of it showing up. Apparently, Bandai, the company who made the game, even came out and said that themselves. If you believe in hearsay, that is. And there were other theories as well, but most of them were little more than shots in the dark. Again, you can watch the video I made for more information about this. I actually tried hunting for Kimeramon myself in it. Anyway, the data for Kimeramon is in the game. Everything was translated, all the animations are there, but this is one Digimon that is out of reach, as the only way to get your hands on one in the English version is through a Game Shark. Unless you wanna fall down the rabbit hole of outlandish theories surrounding this. I mean, it's been over 20 years, but who knows, maybe there is a secret quest that will lead to the discovery of a legitimate Kimeramon one day. And maybe they'll eventually figure out that the Earth is flat after all. It's a pretty even shot either way. But Kimeramon is not the only Digimon whose data is on the disk but is unattainable for one reason or another. Next up, we have a number of Digimon that were left out of the game entirely for some reason. They are a little different from Kimeramon though. These Digimon can't even be found in the Japanese version of Digimon World 2, as far as I can tell anyway. The Digimon we are talking about here are Psychemon, Gearmon, Modoki Betamon, Muchomon, Aruraumon, Charmamon, Fugamon, and Zasomon. Now, Kimeramon could be acquired through Pocket Digimon World and transferred to Digimon World 2, but the Digimon we are talking about here weren't present even in Pocket Digimon World. On the topic of Pocket Digimon World, there were actually 3 different versions of it. The only major differences between them was that some of the Digimon you can train in each of them would be different, along with minor differences in items and available locations. I think the people who made this game were kind of following the template set by early Pokemon games, in terms of the differences between the games in each generation. But while Kimeramon could be found in any version of Pocket Digimon World, the other 8 Digimon we are talking about here can't be found in any of them. The interesting thing is, I think all of the missing Digimon are palette swaps of Digimon who are already present in the game. Psychemon looks an awful lot like Gabumon, and Gearmon looks like a more poop-oriented Numemon. Probably a close cousin of Sukamon or something. And Modoki Betamon? Really? Who came up with this one? And why? They were really scraping the bottom of the barrel here for new Digimon ideas, huh? Well, maybe they were left out of Digimon World 2 because very similar Digimon were already in the game. But then again, they did find a way to fit multiple palette swaps of Agumon in the game. Is this blatant favoritism towards Agumon then? You would think so, but there are plenty of other Digimon with palette swaps in Digimon World 2. There's Vegemon and Red Vegemon, so maybe Zasomon felt like too much of a Digimon no one actually cared about? Anyway, none of these forgotten Digimon can digivolve into anything, no matter how high a level you get them to. Although you can use some of them in DNA Digivolution, but things can get pretty weird there. First, you may notice that none of the lost Digimon actually have a defined level, like Champion or Rookie. Normally, you cannot use Rookie level Digimon in DNA Digivolution, but that does not apply to the lost Digimon because of the lack of a defined level. If you try to DNA Digivolve 2 of the lost Digimon, well, the game just doesn't know what to do with that, so it freezes. Understandable. You can, however, try to combine the lost Digimon with other Digimon, and you can find some pretty interesting results if you do. For example, combining Modoki Betamon, which is supposed to be a rookie, with an Angemon, which is a champion level Digimon, can get me a Blossommon, which is an ultimate level Digimon? That's not right. Some other combinations, like Numemon with Gearmon, generate a more expected result. 2 champion level Digimon are supposed to leave a rookie in this game. But the lost Digimon don't combine well with everything. Trying to fit in Metal Greymon here does not end well. The game just outright freezes. I guess the combination was something unholy. But long story short, the only way to get your hands on them is through a Game Shark. No legitimate means available, unfortunately. But hey, if you have been a big time simp for Fugamon from day one for some weird reason, then now you know that you can get him in Digimon World 2. Good for you, I guess. Next on the list of lost content, we have a couple of lost secret texts that no Digimon can ever learn or have access to. But not just that, we are also gonna take a look at what could have been a couple of lost secret boss battles. As far as the lost texts are concerned, we have 3 pairs of moves, namely Omega Heel and Garuru Cannon, Bronze Cannon and Iron Claws, and finally Paradise Lost and Alias Fake. And there's a reason I've put them in pairs, and I'll get to it in a bit. First, these texts fall into 2 categories: the ones who are completely translated and the ones that are not. As you can see, this skill doesn't have any translated information besides the MP cost. When used in battle, the Japanese name pops up. The animations for all of these texts do exist in the game though. Out of the skills I mentioned, only Garuru Cannon and Alias Fake exist in a translated state. But otherwise, they are fully usable in battle. They even have their own audio lines. Check it out. Amazing voiceover work, as always, Digimon World 2. Now, the reason I put these texts in pairs is that they are apparently tied to certain Digimon, which brings us to the potential lost secret boss battles that I mentioned before. Within the data of Digimon World 2, there is a list of encounters which exist in the game. Every team of wild or boss Digimon that you can run into are listed in this master encounter list. Within this list, there is data for certain encounters that we never come across in the game. There are 3 particular encounters that are really interesting. All 3 of them feature one of the 3 ultimate Digimon, which are Omnimon, Diaboromon, and Baihumon. Normally, if you were to acquire them yourself, whether by catching them in Terra Domain or through rigorous DNA Digivolution grinding, they will only ever learn one move. Diaboromon can learn Inferno Missile, Omnimon can learn Transcendent Sword, and Baihumon can learn Congo. Although the Terra Domain version also has a basic attack called Wolf Claw. But the encounter data for the Ultimate Digimon fights show that they have access to certain special moves. And these are the hidden lost moves that we have been talking about. Each pair belongs to one of the Ultimate Digimon. Garuru Cannon and the untranslated Omega Heel belong to Omnimon. The 2 untranslated texts, Bronze Cannon and Iron Claws, go with Baihumon. And finally, Alias Fake along with the untranslated Paradise Lost go with Diaboromon. In terms of what the moves actually do, Garuru Cannon and Bronze Cannon are both very similar party-wide attacks. Iron Claws and Paradise Lost are also quite similar to each other and only hit one target. Omega Heal is a recovery move that heals 200 HP. There are much better actually available healing abilities in the game though. Alias Fake is the most interesting out of the bunch, as the Digimon that uses it cannot be targeted by attacks. Although the Digimon can still be hit by a party-wide attack. Coming back to those secret lost encounters with the Ultimate Digimon, we can make a somewhat educated guess on where we were supposed to meet them. In the encounter data list, each of these encounters is listed next to their type-appropriate guardian. That can't be a coincidence. In case you are lucky and haven't played through Digimon World 2, the Guardian is the second last boss of the game. The type of Guardian you encounter depends on the team you select at the beginning of the game. So if you join the Virus type team, you'll face the Virus type Guardian, like I did in my playthrough of this game. Maybe, at some point during the development of the game, we were supposed to face off against one of the encounters featuring the Ultimate Digimon, depending on the type of Guardian. Maybe these encounters were initially supposed to be in place of the Guardians even, but were replaced by the Guardians later on. If we take a look at the battle formation data in the game, it is quite interesting to see that the stats of the Ultimate Digimon are practically the same as the stats of the Guardians, with some differences, sure, such as the Ultimate Digimon having a higher defense stat and slightly higher speed, but still. What we can be sure of, at the very least, is that these encounters definitely weren't meant to be some wild, random ones. Looking into the data of the game again, we can find portraits of characters and Digimon who either play an important role in the game or at least have lines of dialogue. Interestingly, there are portraits belonging to the 3 Ultimate Digimon here, although they are never used in the game. This, for me, gives more weight to the idea that Omnimon and friends were supposed to play an important role in the game, whether as main game bosses or optional post-game ones. As far as I'm concerned, the Guardian boss battle that we did get is a pretty terrible one. The Guardians are huge pushovers, and the lost encounters, I feel, would have been much more interesting to fight against. That is, if these encounters were replaced by the Guardians. It is possible that we were supposed to fight against the Guardians as well as one of the lost encounters. But no matter how you were supposed to fight against them, it is unfortunate that they were cut from the game. The decision to get rid of them must have been quite late in development, I feel, as the encounter data and the animations for their unique moves, all of that was pretty much done. But if you want to see firsthand how hard these fights would have been, you can use a Game Shark to initiate a battle against them. They can be pretty challenging unless you are heavily overleveled. And of course, you can use a Game Shark to get the lost moves on your Digimon too. If you are feeling particularly naughty, you can even put Garuru Cannon on a Numemon. Would that make sense? Probably not, but it would give your Numemon the ultimate moveset. Garuru Cannon and throwing poop at other Digimon. Sounds like a good party to me. Next up, let's talk about a couple of missing domains. There are 2 domains that were cut from the game apparently. The first one appears to be a test domain, where they probably tested all the various domain-related activity, such as landmines, barriers, and bugs. It's a pretty barren environment otherwise, but still, it's kinda neat to see this. There are some Digimon present in here, but they are all very low-level rookie Digimon, such as Crabmon, Gabumon, and Patamon. If you take the floor portal present here, then you will end up in a very tiny room with plenty of bug traps around you. But there is nowhere else to go after this. The other domain is actually quite similar to the modem domain present in the actual game. This is the domain where we fight the resident pervert of Digimon World 2, Greymon. In terms of layout and the wild Digimon present here, the Lost domain is practically identical to modem domain, including the boss fight against Greymon. But there are some subtle differences in dialogue. I am not sure that the dialogue was improved upon, to be honest. It does sound less perverted in the Lost version, I guess. In the actual game, after you kick Greymon's butt, there isn't any dialogue at the end of the battle. But in the Lost domain, Greymon actually has a couple of lines of dialogue after the battle, suggesting that he was, initially, supposed to be a recurring character, perhaps. Afterwards though, we do run into Kim, just like we do in the actual game, and the dialogue here is pretty much the same before and after the fight. Even the enemy team compositions of the 2 fights here, against Greymon and Kim, are the same as they are in the main game. The only difference is the Greymon dialogue. I guess they really needed the audience to get on their knees and say please. While the opportunity for this pervert Greymon to be a recurring character has been lost to time, what isn't lost is the opportunity for you to subscribe to our Patreon. You will get exclusive perks, content, and the knowledge that you are helping keep this channel alive. May the light of the crystals continue to guide us. Anyway, back to the video. The final bit of lost content that I want to talk about is some artwork that can be found hiding in the data of the game. First up is the image of a completed File City from Digimon World 1. File City is a place in Digimon World 2, but it looks nothing like this. But then again, the World 1 artwork doesn't really fit in with the artwork of the second game. I think that File City may have been intended to be an important part of Digimon World 2 from the beginning, and they just kept this as a placeholder until they got around to designing it. But at least we know where this image is from. The next one is not something I recognize at all. In terms of artwork, it looks like it belongs in Digimon World 3, to be honest. But this particular image doesn't exist there either. Not sure why it's here, to be honest. Maybe Digimon World 2 had a different art direction early on until they changed it to the very boring style that they ended up settling on. Well, that's about it for the relevant lost content for Digimon World 2, but we are not done yet. Now it's time to get weird and take a look at some glitches. Most of the glitches in Digimon World 2 happen during a battle, usually when you use certain attacks and other techs. There are 4 different types of moves in this game: attack, counter, interrupt, and assist. Almost all of the problems happen due to interrupts, and the most broken one, by far, is Chrono Breaker. In the wild, Clockmon is the Digimon that I am aware of who has access to it. That makes sense. What Chrono Breaker is supposed to do is quite simple. If it interrupts an attack, it will cause the attacker to go last in the turn, instead of whenever it was attacking. But the programming behind this move is pretty screwy. Let's take a look at Dark Shot. On its own, Dark Shot itself is kinda glitchy. It looks like it's supposed to hit the entire opposing party, but that's not what happens. Instead, it hits a random target. But what happens when Dark Shot gets interrupted by Chrono Breaker? Well, let's take a look. So Dark Shot becomes a party-wide attack. Chrono Breaker allowed Dark Shot to break its limits, I think. But attacks aren't the only thing Chrono Breaker screws around with. Next, let's take a look at Necromagic. Basically, Necromagic is an assist, which appears to target everyone. What it actually does is target one of the fallen Digimon on the battlefield and take some MP from them and give it to the user. Now, when it is interrupted by Chrono Breaker, at first it seems that nothing has really changed. The Necromagic user gets their turn moved to the end of the round, like usual, and when the Digimon finally gets their turn, the move goes off as normal. But while testing this, something here caused future uses of Necromagic to completely miss each time. I am not sure how this happened. Other times, under the same conditions, it would work fine. Attacks seem to work fine, it's just Necromagic that gets messed up. The only way to stop this from happening is to end the battle. The issue doesn't carry over to the next one. But here's something even more fun. Let's say one of your Digimon uses Necromagic and gets interrupted by Clockmon and his Chrono Breaker. But then, let's say one of your other Digimon gets their turn right after and also uses Necromagic. For some reason, instead of targeting one of the fallen Digimon, this Necromagic will target each Digimon that is still alive, both on your side and the opposing one, including the Digimon who used Necromagic. This one particularly I thought was pretty crazy. The Digimon that got interrupted by Chrono Breaker in the first place will use the regular kind of Necromagic. So what happened here? I'm not sure. Potato programming, probably? But things can get freaky even when you use Chrono Breaker. Normally, a counter activates when the user of a counter is hit with an attack. If that doesn't happen during the round until the user's turn comes up, then the counter will become a regular attack. But it will be weaker than how it would have been if it had activated as a counter. Metal Maimon, for example, has Energetic Bomb. When used as a counter, it hits the entire opposing party. When it's used like a regular attack, it only hits one target. Now, I found a pretty cute glitch when going up against this particular Garudamon party in the wild. All I did was interrupt Garudamon's attack with Chrono Breaker. Immediately afterwards, for no reason, Metal Maimon's counter activated, even though he hadn't taken any damage yet. In this case, it only hit Garudamon, but that's because the rest of his party was already on the ground. I tried this again, but in a slightly different way, by doing it while the entire opposing party was still alive, and while interrupting Garudamon's attack. This did not cause the counter to activate, but some other weird thing happened instead, because Garudamon went next and attacked my entire party, but Metal Maimon's counter still did not activate, at all. Instead, he used Energetic Bomb as a regular attack later in the round. Let's take a look at another fun interaction, this time featuring the dynamic duo of Hercules Kabuterimon and Skull Mammothmon. Hercules Kabuterimon has two moves, Super Shocker, which is a garbage single target attack, and Giga Scissors Claw, which is an interrupt. Let's look at the simpler glitch first. If you counter Skull Mammothmon with Chrono Breaker and Hercules Kabuterimon goes right after, then Super Shocker will turn into a party-wide attack, very similar to how Dark Shot did earlier. I'm sure you're thinking, alright, that's cool, but what else you got? Okay, time for the weirder glitch. For this to work, you need to interrupt Skull Mammothmon with Chrono Breaker, while Hercules Kabuterimon uses the Giga Scissors Claw interrupt in the same round. What happens is that our big yellow Kabuterimon loses his entire turn. He could have interrupted Megadramon's Dark Side attack, but he doesn't. It's like the poor guy isn't even there, as he watches his mammoth friend get punked. So Chrono Breaker literally breaks certain moves. Or maybe we are witnessing alternate reality versions of the moves or something? Who knows? Time is weird. But like I said in the beginning, most of the problems lie with the interrupt category itself. Next up, let's take a look at Shadow Scythe. This is a pretty interesting move. Normally, Shadow Scythe hits one target, and if the target is not knocked out by it, then nothing else happens. If, however, the target is knocked out by it, then Shadow Scythe will be used again, this time with a cost of 0 MP, and go after another target. If it happens to KO that one too, then the same thing will repeat. Another point to keep note of is that different audio is used for the attack depending on whether it's the initial attack or the one launched after getting a KO. Now, something pretty cool can happen when Shadow Scythe gets interrupted. In this situation, I'm going to use Shadow Scythe on this nearly dead Apemon, but before it goes off, it will be interrupted by regular Kabuterimon's counter here. Let's see what happens next. So it completely ignored Apemon and went after Kabuterimon, who was targeted twice by Shadow Scythe even though no Digimon was KO'd by it. Even stranger is the fact that no MP is consumed by these attacks at all. This is because even the first Shadow Scythe used here is considered the 0 MP version, which is normally used after the move gets at least one KO. And it's used twice, because why not? Potato programming at work once again. But I've been saving the best interrupt related glitch for last. It's time for the zombie Digimon glitch. If you want to try this at home, you can use any Digimon that has an interrupt for this one. Let's say that the Digimon that is using an interrupt gets knocked out. If an opposing Digimon uses a move after that, you will still get the opportunity to interrupt that move. And if you do, your deceased Digimon will rise up from its grave to do battle once more. And it will keep standing with 0 HP. But you can't really do anything else with it, and it won't actually get a proper turn or anything. If you try to heal your party, it won't get healed either, although it will still be standing around menacingly. For all intents and purposes, the Digimon is considered to be KO'd by the game. You have to revive it to get any more use out of it. Still, it's pretty cool having a zombie on your team, even if it is useless. Well, those were all the in-battle glitches I wanted to talk about, but we aren't quite done with the glitches just yet. So everyone who has played Digimon World 2 knows about the catchable Metal Greymon in Bios domain. But did you know that if you left the domain after catching that Metal Greymon, but before fighting the boss of the domain, then if you go to Bios domain again, you'll find another Metal Greymon and you can catch this one too. Even having one is a game changer. Having multiple can let you steamroll bosses for quite a while. You can get 2 toy planes before you head to Bios domain, so you can catch 2 Metal Greymons just with that. This was certainly unintended by the developers, but hey, anything that can help lower the amount of grinding you need to do in this game is a good thing. The next glitch is a pretty simple one. If you go to the Colosseum and try to sign up for a tournament without having the funds required to participate, the tournament registration lady kind of loses her mind or something, or becomes possessed by the wandering ghost of a gold hawk tamer. Very spooky. Another reason being broke is not a good idea, even in Digimon World 2. There are a couple of other dialogue related glitches in the game, but this one, in my opinion, is definitely the weirdest one. The only glitch weirder than that one is the one causing you to not be subscribed to the channel and keeping you from liking this video. So get rid of this glitch by destroying the subscribe button and tickling that like button. Do not let the real life glitches win again. And finally, it is time to take a look at my favorite glitch in Digimon World 2. In Pokemon, I'm sure everyone has, at one time or another, wanted to catch one of the gym leaders or Team Rocket's Pokemon. Who wouldn't want to get their hands on Brock's rock-hard Onix, am I right? Well, what if I told you that you could do that in Digimon World 2? I mean, you can't catch Brock's rock-hard Onix, but you can catch enemy boss Digimon. There is a point in the main game where you can do something called a sequence break. Basically, there is a domain that can be skipped entirely without using any cheats or glitches to do so. The main story will continue without you ever completing that domain. And if you were to go to that domain after progressing the main story, you'll find the bosses that you were supposed to fight just hanging around in there. They aren't gonna move towards you or run away from you. They just exist now. Even weirder, you can throw gifts at these bosses and try to catch their Digimon. From what I understand, doing that sequence break and progressing the main story causes the story scripts at this domain to become deactivated. Because there's no longer a trigger that locks your controls, brings up the dialogue and makes them move towards you, the bosses behave as any other wild party in the game would, except that they don't move. This glitch would be especially useful in a speedrun situation, I think. And there are plenty of Digimon here that can be pretty worthwhile to catch, like Commander Damien's Grand Kowagamon, for example. Don't skip the chance to inflict even more misery on that guy. He deserves it. The guy almost blew up a whole city after all. And what's more, you can keep coming back and catching more of the same Digimon if you wanted. This domain gets completely bugged out, so the fact that it's called Bug Domain is pretty appropriate, isn't it? Well, it's been a wild time, huh? From finding Digimon that we weren't meant to find, to catching Digimon we weren't meant to catch. What was your favorite part of this video? Did you enjoy falling down the rabbit hole of lost content? Or did you have more fun with the glitches? Do you know something cool, fun, or interesting about Digimon World 2 that I missed? Do let me know in the comments. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to spank those like and subscribe buttons and check out our Patreon to help keep the channel alive. And if you can't, that's fine too, no pressure. Well, I'll see you all next time. Until then, try not to think about Brock's rock hard Onyx too much, okay? Bye bye.